to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways, beloveds, and that you're taking what is happening, what is unfolding on the world arena extremely seriously, and that you're preparing yourself for the complete collapse of Babylon, enough so you don't have to be part of their resurrection or their global reset. And it's very important for us to realize the seasons and times that we're moving into, because we're moving into what they're trying to create, a prison planet or a prison matrix. That's what the New World Order is. And, you know, they've done everything. The colonization that they're aiming for right now, the control that they're aiming for right now is totally mental, beloveds. Totally mental, and we need to be fully aware of that, because it's very important for us to stand strong, to stand firm, to protect our mind, to protect the vessel that the mind is in, and to really move out of the way of Babylon as Babylon falls, because Babylon is falling while kicking and screaming. And a lot of people have been talking about George Orwell's 1984 and how we're living in that time, and that's a book that you should definitely read, beloveds. Either read the book for yourself or go check out the footnotes that different people, the analysis that different people have given on the book. Now, this is a book that was written in 1949, and ironically, the cover on the book is actually one eye. So we know that the whole New World Order, they by the way, they hijacked the one eye symbol from Kemet, Stories for Other Days, but they've been on this whole one eye, but the one eye is beyond, like, you know, this, what we see the musicians doing, the left hand, you know, demonic, vampiristic path. But it's deeper than that. It's about creating a surveillance system where everyone is watched. That's what the one eye stands for, beloveds. And so in this book by George Orwell called 1984, he talks about a future time. And in 1949, he thought 1984 was way out there, where, where the world had fallen victim to perpetual war, omnipresent government surveillance, and historical negativism and propaganda. And basically the world was then, now he said, was controlled in a very scary thing. Like he talks of like thought police, and how, you know, there were police that would monitor people's thoughts, etc., etc. That's where we're moving into, beloveds. He talked of a ministry of plenty or something like that, where, let me see, a ministry of plenty, where the government would literally control the rations that were given out to the people, how much food different people would get, etc., etc. And he talked of the ministry of truth, which would basically control information. I mean, a lot of this is what is happening right now. And the Ministry of Truth controlled the news, they controlled the entertainment, they controlled education and the arts. Beloveds, I've told you, the number one universal law of this, you know, of this solar melanated planet is the law of mentalism. That the thoughts create the reality. And the way this place works is like you have to get the consent of the custodians of the land. I are the custodians of the land, beloveds. And so Babylon has to get our consent, but for so long they've done it in a trickster way. They haven't come straight up and said, this is what we're doing, consent. But they've done it. They always they'll either put it like a marketing thing, like it's the best thing that's ever going to happen to you, or they'll, you know, sneak it in there in movies, in books. I mean, this book was written in 1949, and this guy accurately describes what is being implemented right here, right now in 2021. Was it some kind of spell, or was he a seer who actually saw what would be unfolding? And he talks of, the ministry of love, which would identify, monitor, arrest, and convert real and imagined dissidents. Aren't we seeing that today with like the social score that has been totally rolled out in China, where if you're a good citizen, you're like this, you're a bad citizen, you have less access to the goodies of the government? This is already being implemented. And that's why they're moving so fast into this surveillance state. They want to be able to track and monitor everybody and get rid of the dissenting voices. Get rid of the revolutionaries. First of all, identify the revolutionaries, because they know that the Reformation is here. They know that the rebels, the ones that are going to claim back the melanated planet, are here. And many may not be, maybe many may not know themselves, maybe many may not be in a position to rise up and take their rightful positions. So they're trying to snuff out any kind of revolution before it even happens. But they've been implementing this surveillance state for so long. And the reason they're so into the surveillance state is because they don't fully understand the unknown that creates the known. They don't fully understand the spirit man. And the spirit man, because it's an unknown for them, they fear that at any time the spirit man can arise and totally dismantle and decimate this mental, fake world that they've created, this mental reality that they've created to just feed, rape, pillage, and siphon us off. It's happening on the spiritual dimension, and it's being reflected on the physical dimension by the representatives of what they call the cabal, or whatever you want to call it. So they know that also we've entered a time where you can connect to higher sources that will give you power, but they can't see into that realm. I told you, beloveds, it's a higher dimension, but they figured out how to monitor and control thoughts and to read people's thoughts. And so in 1984, this guy was predicting a thought police and a minister of truth. Why would they be investing so much in controlling the mental? Because the time has come, beloveds, where in a twinkle of an eye, your mind can totally release you from this prison. And if you stand firm mentally, even if there looks like there's no way out, if you escape spiritually and mentally, and you, with all your will and with all your might, you see yourself as a liberated being, powerful being, you will be out of their realm of control. And that's also what they're trying to do. They're trying to push us who are awakened, who are vibing higher, out of their realm of the control. So they're pushing us away from the cities, because they know many of the enlightened ones, we're not going to stand there to be controlled, monitored, injected, etc., etc. So they're taking us away from the populace, and then the war is on the revolutionaries. It's against the revolution, because they understand the mental time we're in. So they've created this whole global mind that they know can be hijacked at any second by a chosen one who can totally send a different vibration on their airwaves that will have a ripple domino effect of awakening. And that's why there's been an amazing acceleration of the awakening of the melanated people during this time, just as much as there's been so much, surveillance and kind of, censorship, etc., etc. But everyone needs to take a close look at what George Orwell said about, 1984. Because the war is on our minds, beloveds. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Welcome back, beloveds, to Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. Thanks to every single person that has subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely consider joining our spiritual Patreon family, where we've shared a lot more information on there, and it's just it's a really beautiful, deeper community. I'm talking about George Orwell's 1984, where he wrote this book in 1949, and I don't know if he was an agent, because as I said, as the custodians of this land, they always have to tell us what's coming next, what's coming down the line. And when you read this book, you'll actually see how accurate it was in terms of the surveillance state that is being revealed now. Because, beloveds, we are in the final unveiling of what has been the New World Order. They started implementing the New World Order back in after the mega sacrifice of World War II, and everything that has been orchestrated has been to increasingly try and control humanity, because we have a part of us that they don't understand, that they can access, and that's our spiritual side. But they're trying to control absolutely everything that's on this side, on this physical realm. And that's why they've done so much to disconnect us from our spirituality, disconnect us from our gods, our ancestors, our ancient ones, any kind of spiritual connection. They've created all these fantasy movies so that our mind is shattered about what the spiritual world looks like, how the spiritual world operates, and made it all fantastical and very confusing. Even the fact that we've absorbed all these cartoons and everything really mashes with our first eye and what we're able to see. And so now they are going into a complete surveillance state. That's the ultimate goal. And, George Orwell, I don't know, as I said, if this was some kind of spell where he was trying to, helping the elite to kind of already putting it out there in the ethers, because so many people have read this book. But when we look at it, the things he says just is scary about, a big brother who kind of runs, he says there's these super states. So he calls them, Oceania, and several others, which are like, so there's a big European state, then there's a big Asian state, and then half of Africa is part of like some other countries like India, etc., etc. And so he's like, there's these massive states, and then there's these states which are rebelling, most of them in Southern Africa, etc., etc., where that's where the Babylon system now gets their slaves from and their slave labor. And so they attack these states that have not surrendered to the New World Order, and kind of, the slavery trade has restarted or reemerged. And, it's crazy how much attention, and I'm going to do a whole separate show on this, how he talks about the crime of thinking. And he talks of how, basically in his world, censorship was one of the biggest things, especially in the Ministry of Truth, where he talked about how photographs and public archives were manipulated to rid them of unpersons, people who had been erased from history by the party for being, too rebellious, having alternative thoughts from the leadership, and on these telescreens that were there, almost all the figures of production were grossly exaggerated or simply fabricated to indicate an ever-growing economy, which is kind of what's being done in the divided states right now. Like, inflation is coming, recession is coming, the dollar it's heading down, towards collapse. But when you look at the media, everyone is just, everything is great. Oh, the job market is great, is recovering, this and that. But that's not the reality. And that's what this world talked about, because there's so much censorship, where unfortunately the majority of our people are only getting news from the mainstream media, the New World Order media, beloveds, the demonic media system. That's the only access they have, or many don't even know to question it. And so if you are listening to me and other YouTubers who, from all over the planet, who are talking about the seasons and times, the alternative news, we're talking about the seasons and times that we're in right now, then you will really recognize just how much, how much is being done to control the narrative. I mean, it's just either you're in the alternative or I mean, the gap is so clear, or in the mainstream. And, he also talked a lot about poverty and inequality, and how almost the entire world lived in poverty, hunger, thirst, disease, and filth were the norms. The world was filled with ruined cities and towns. This was like a common thing to see, which was the consequence of wars and false flag operations. And basically, he envisioned what Babylon would look like fallen, and how Babylon would create new colonies, these super states, and how they try and control the people. Beloveds, they're rolling out the new world order right now. And wherever we are in the world, we don't know whether our nations will bow to it or resist. But either way, different kinds of obstacles will come. If they bow, then we'll have to avoid taking all these different things, the mark of the beast, literally. And if they don't bow, then we'd better be prepared to live as a rebellious state. But it's coming to that critical point, beloveds. And I highly recommend that you look into everything that, this George Orwell, 1984. He's also the one who wrote The Animal Farm, which is also a great description of the current political system. I swear, he was almost like a seer. And he also talked of the Big Brother. And the funny thing is, the Big Brother was basically a fictional character who may have not even existed, who would go out there and give speeches, have rallies, and had like what he called like a cult, like a godlike following, a cult-like following. But he may not even have been real. Beloveds, there's a lot of CGI going on. If you don't know what CGI is, definitely look it up. There's a lot that's being played out in the screens, and they're about to put on a whole global show and turn on the global freaking TV screen. Tell I vision. They're about to lie to your vision like in real time. Where if you've received the mark of the beast, you will see things in the sky that they've just used different things to create but aren't really real. The whole thing is surveillance, tracing, and tracking. They want to make sure that the revolutionaries don't have access to the sheeple, because it's only the revolutionaries, the chosen ones, that can shut this whole thing down. The sheeple, even if they were to come together, but first of all, they're too weak spiritually. Because this world is not run by physical power, beloveds. It's run by spiritual power. And the higher you are spiritually, the more control you have on those beneath you. Which is why these secret societies do the rituals our ancestors did, etc., to elevate themselves so that they can control humanity, because humanity will be below them. But if you see what they're predicting in 1984, it will really, beloveds, if you can, move out of Babylon as quickly as you can. And don't worry about living the life that you're living right now. Learn to live simple. Get out and get all the necessary things you need. Get into prepping, beloveds. Prepare. And if you're a revolutionary, there's going to reach a time where we're going to have to throw all the gadgets away. So prepare for that too. Because they've made us addicted to be connected to the world and connected to Auntie so-and-so in the divided states and Uncle so-and-so in Sweden. They've made us, it's not a good thing to be online on their system. And they know that the age of telepathy is here, which is why they're trying to control the thoughts. Because revolution, I told you, beloveds, watch my show on the language of Africa's future and link it to everything that's being said here. Tuko pamoja.